What are the best resources for information about the polar vortex? If you are curious about the polar vortex and want to learn more, you are in the right place. Understanding the polar vortex is essential for grasping how it affects weather patterns in polar regions and beyond. So, what are the best resources for this fascinating topic? First, let's talk about what the polar vortex actually is. It is a large area of low pressure and cold air that rotates around the polar regions in both the northern and southern hemispheres. This phenomenon exists in two main layers of the atmosphere. The stratospheric polar vortex is located about 15 to 50 kilometers above the Earth, while the tropospheric polar vortex is closer to the surface. Both layers spin in the same direction as the Earth but have different sizes and influences on weather. To understand the polar vortex better, look for resources that explain how it forms. The polar vortex becomes more prominent during autumn when temperatures drop rapidly in the polar night. This creates a temperature difference between the poles and the tropics. The resulting temperature gradient causes strong westerly winds to spin around the poles, forming the vortex. You will also want to find resources that discuss the effects of the polar vortex. It plays a vital role in containing the coldest air masses, particularly Arctic air in the northern hemisphere. The strength and position of the vortex can influence weather for beyond the polar regions, affecting mid-latitude areas by controlling the movement of cold air. For practical information, consider checking scientific and governmental climate organizations. They provide clear explanations about the structure and behavior of the polar vortex, along with data and analysis from polar research. Educational platforms are also excellent for learning about the atmospheric science behind the polar vortex. They often cover its formation, rotation, and interaction with the jet stream. Research articles and reports are another great source of information. They discuss how changes in polar climate conditions, like Arctic warming and sea ice decline, impact the polar vortex and related weather phenomena. Monitoring the polar vortex can help improve weather forecasting and climate modeling. This knowledge is essential for predicting cold air outbreaks and preparing for winter storms. In summary, the best resources for understanding the polar vortex include scientific organizations, educational platforms, and research articles. These sources will give you a well-rounded view of the polar vortex, its role in polar regions, and its influence on global weather patterns.